So welcome to the second half of the lecture. So we're doing integrated marketing communications, we're doing celebrity endorsement, product placement. We've done celebrity endorsement, we're going to move on to product placement. So Samuel, just to say that I didn't give you proper credit here for saying Rolex and green, which is absolutely spot on. So we were saying, weren't we, how the Rolex advert was really making a link with Wimbledon, which are because Rolex is the timekeeper there. So lots and lots of positive associations for the brand. So, but of course, celebrity endorsement comes with a government health warning, doesn't it? And some severe limitations. So, although the celebrity might command the attention of the consumer, that isn't necessarily true of the brand. That isn't necessarily true of the brand. So you might be a real tennis fan, you might be a massive fan of Roger Federer, but be really happy with your Casio watch on your arm. Yeah? So you're not interested in Rolex or the associations. You didn't see the fact that it was in kind of Wimbledon colours. You didn't make an association between the endorser and the brand because you didn't see it. It wasn't important to you. Maybe there's an inconsistency between the celebrity image and the brand required. So perhaps if, I don't know, perhaps if Rihanna didn't look great, you know, at that time, she couldn't have been a celebrity endorser for that brand, for a brand of skincare. And actually, the celebrity must be seen as a genuine expert in that product category, in that brand's product category, for it to work. Because you want, not only do you want a positive association, but you want to believe, don't you, that the celebrity uses your brand even when they're not got the advert being made and the cameras in front of them. You want to think that your endorser goes away and uses the brand when they finish making the advert for you. You want to believe that, don't you, as the brand provider, and you want obviously your customers to believe in the same thing. So there must be a genuine appropriate fit here. So sometimes, of course, the image transfer from the celebrity's brand is unclear if they start to misbehave. So celebrities often endorse brands to their own agenda. That's what I was trying to talk about with David Beckham sitting there in his Armani underwear. Most celebrities appeal to members of the opposite gender. We won't be going there because that's a complicated world. Fans are attracted to celebrities as a person or an idol. So fans might admire the celebrity, they might admire Taylor Swift, but they don't necessarily want to imitate her by slugging down bottles of Diet Coke every day. So simply the idea that you admire a celebrity doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that positive image transfer. It's a complicated old world, nothing more so. However, of course, it's really attractive for brands, isn't it? Because there's so much competition in communications. You know, television is you've really got to struggle in the modern age on television because, you know, if you're not watching BBC One or ITV, there are, you know, 200 and something other channels on Freeview or Sky, and TV advertising is a tricky old world. The revenue is still going up from it, so more and more people are advertising on television, but actually the competitiveness is going up too, and you would have thought that therefore the effectiveness of television advertising is reducing. Loads and loads of stuff is online. So actually, it's a brilliant way out, isn't it? Just like sponsorship, it's a way out. It's a way that you can define your brand without the competition. And of course, that goes for modern platforms as well. So the idea of kind of celebrity blogs, bloggers, blogging, and influencers now really comes to the fore. So who's this in the picture there? It's Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. So you would have thought if you can associate yourself with that, then actually you would do pretty well, didn't you? So I've been doing some teaching on sustainability issues, and look, what comes up for me when I searched for Amber Heard on BuzzFeed News, I just Googled it and just took the first page that came to mind, and I just had a look at the pop-up adverts came up, and they all came up, and it was always likes and watches, and the sustainability MSc at Cranfield popped up as well. So actually, you couldn't get a less good fit, could you? You couldn't really get a less good fit. So there's no fit there whatsoever. And my guess is they're simply paying for volume. So we're going, all right, BuzzFeed, okay, we'll advertise on you as long as you can give us this number of exposures. We're pretending that we're going to get to people who are interested, but reality is we won't, because there isn't much link, is there, between that kind of gossip court case and with what I might be interested in advertising. So that probably is wasted money for Cranfield, but doesn't stop, of course, influencers being really important. We looked at this again, didn't we, last week? So we looked at people using their favorite, Instagram stars, Twitter personalities, YouTubers, and those kind of things for advice and recommendations on purchasing decisions. And so social media has given, Joe Blow, the ordinary person in the street, an opportunity to build their own brand by stimulating their content and getting engaged, getting numbers of people on board. So that attracts greater levels of trust than traditional celebrities because, of course, they're seen to be, your next door neighbour and people like you, and therefore attracts younger consumers. So if you have a look at the rise of celebrity blogs, bloggers, and influencers here, you'll see that the amount of money is going through the roof still. So this is from a while ago. Look, January 2020. Then PewDiePie had the largest number of subscribers to his YouTube platform at over 80 million. I'm guessing that would have gone up in the last 2 years because gaming is one of the things that you could do during lockdown. And way down the list here, coming in at number 8, is our very own Zoe Suggs, Zoella. So she's is she kind of cosmetics and that kind of thing? Is that what she does as a celebrity endorser? And look, she has over, nearly 40 million total followers across the world. So she's made her become a very rich woman indeed. And the effectiveness, though, of those bloggers is called into question a little bit. So whilst they might have loads of subscribers, if you look at this a different way and you look at how much money they make, and I think this is annually, then look, Ronaldo comes in at number 1 with over 500 million. So he pulls in $500 million worth of sponsorships, endorsements from his social media activities. And then look, we've got Justin Bieber, we've got Ariana Grande, we've got, who is that? Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift, Kylie Jenner, Rihanna, lots of people we looked at. Katy Perry's there, Kim Kardashian's there, and then Dwayne Johnson. But you see, now we're into a funny old world, aren't we? So whilst those people are become the highest number of media influencers in terms of the revenue that they can put in, they're not necessarily now trusted experts, aren't they? So Ronaldo in particular, I think he's a great footballer, but I'm not so sure that I would trust him to talk about, world issues like inequality and global poverty. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be frivolous about this. It's quite serious because now you've got people who aren't experts and specialists making, quite large sums of money in advertising and revenue from promoting messages that that they may or may not be trusted on. So we're into a really complicated world now with this, and it's born of the fact that the CMA, the Competitions and Markets Authority, still haven't done anything about this. So they basically asked influencers like Zoella, Eddie Goulding, Lexa Chung, all those kind of influencers and key celebrities that are making money from endorsements online. They had an investigation and they found that lots of those people are failing to comply with their requirement that they advertise, that they make it clear that when they're endorsing a product, that they actually make it clear that they're getting a sponsorship or getting a revenue income from those products. Posts which have been paid for by the brands will need to be clearly labelled with hashtag ad or hashtag sponsor, for instance. And the CMA suggests that that people should be using that to post about them, but they don't, and they haven't done anything about it. And it comes back a little bit to why I started the lecture with the news about what the government's trying to do with data protection and with trying to tackle big data and the social media companies in this country, because they're onto, they're into a difficult world here if they're going to do something about it. So old Zoella, yeah, probably can continue to post as she wishes without necessarily saying that there's money changing hands. So tricky old world, product placement's the same. Phil and Turnbull call it brand placement. So they're saying, no, Tony, you got this all wrong. We're not talking about the product anymore as if it were some USP. We're talking about cementing the brand into people's lifestyles. So we've moved away from thinking about individual products, Diet Coke and Walker's Crisps, plain Walker's Crisps, and we're now into, what Walker stands for as what Coca-Cola stands for as a business, what Walker stands for as a business. Coke has, what values we hold and how they will form part of our attitude towards, people's diets or feminism or, whether pop stars should get royalties and those kind of things. So Phil and Turnbull say, actually, you can look at all these different ways of a brand placement, of taking advantage of that by, media associated with your brand characteristics, supporting promotional activity, and consumer attributes, what kind of attributes that your consumers have on brand placement, talking about different sorts of placement activities and regulations. And all these things are kind of impinging to affect your opportunities for product or brand placement. So product placement, what are we talking about here? We're talking about these kind of things. So shall I play these two videos? I'm going to have to bring up the, let me just bring them up. Put them into a new tab. I don't think I can bring up the volume. I've got nowhere to bring up the volume, have I? Can't check it on the screen. Do you want to watch these things? Take that as a yes. We try and get a bit more volume together. There. So.
Metro just passed through the station. You are clear for 90 seconds. Go.
That did open in Google, didn't it? Right, sorry about that. Right, let me try and just bring up the clips so you can watch them at home. So there's two clips here. They're both the film The Italian Job. The first one is the original version, and the second one is the new version. So just have a think about the difference between those things and whether you think that the product placement works or doesn't work with either of the versions. So let me just bring up the tab. And hopefully you'll be able to this is the 1969 version. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see it. So that's the original film, and then contrast with the way that the brand comes out in this. So in the original film, they used a few minis. They had to buy them all, and they ran out of budget. So they had to buy Lamborghinis, they had to buy E-Type Jags. They had to buy all these cars because BMC refused to give them. British Motor Corporation, that was making the Mini at the time, refused to give them away. There was no sense that product placement was going to be the way forward. Whereas the Italian Job, I think BMW gave the new version 50 minis to play with and make into the film. So contrast that with the new film and the way that the brand now will appear. So have a think about the difference in the way it's shot and the way the brand might come out.
Come on, Steve. 30 seconds. 15 seconds, you're either blocked in or you paint on the train. Stay right on, it's gonna be tight.
Stop right there.
Okay, so we get back to the lecture. I don't know if you could hear that at home or see it. Okay, what about the differences then between the two ways that things were shot? So, which do you prefer? So it's both the same film. So it's the 1969 version where filmmakers had to buy all the cars, and the 2003 version where they got given all the cars. But what about the way that the thing's shot? What do you think? Big difference between the two. The first one's quite functional, you're looking at the cars from outside. And then the second one, what are you seeing?
See more the interior.
You do, don't you? You see the actors and the actresses and the actors. You see them, don't you? Actually driving the cars. So you're inside the car much more. What do you think? Who prefers the first one and who prefers the second one? Who prefers the first one? Put up a quick show of hands here. Milo? No, you don't like either of them. Who likes the second one? Yeah? Okay. I like the first one because I used to have a Mini, so it kind of appeals to me. And I like the first one because it has that kind of technical reality, whereas the second one, you kind of got to suspend your disbelief that they could actually drive onto the platform in front of the train, off the platform onto the rails in front of the train. And also, you've also got to think about, the noises and everything. It's like Formula 1 cars, to me, it doesn't kind of ring true and fit. So, but the point I wanted to make is that it's come a long way. Product placement and those ways of delivering, seeing your brand at first hand has come a long way. And here is it's the TV shows in, I don't know if this is across the world or just in the States, but it's the TV shows with the highest number of product placements of all time, worldwide, as of March 22. So I can't actually see this. What's on the left-hand side there? It's The Office, isn't it? It's the US version of The Office. Yeah, and then next is Sex and the City. Seinfeld. Yeah, and then after that is Sex and the City that you said you didn't know. And then after that is it Friends? Yeah. So all these programs have got product placements in it. So what you're doing is you're sitting down, you're watching a TV program, you're watching a film, and it's loaded with the stars using the products as part of the set, as part of the story, as a background. And so what franchise kicked off the whole idea about product placement? What films kicked it off? What sort of film? What films? You said you knew this, so I asked you at the beginning. James Bond films. So the whole James Bond franchise, big thing, kicked off the industry, which is now worth billions and billions of pounds. And is this the best Bond film? Is it the best Bond film? Put your hand up if you think that's probably the best Bond film. Yeah, I think that probably is the best Bond film. Maybe Thunderball, maybe the second one, or Russia With Love. Anyway, brilliant Bond film, and shows James Bond absolutely at his best. What watch does he wear? In the books, he wears a Rolex. In the films, he wears different. What car does he drive? He drives an Aston Martin. He drives that lovely DB5, which is a lovely, gorgeous car. What does he drink? Sorry? He does. You said that. Sorry, I'm not looking right. Yeah, vodka martinis. Sorry, I was looking at the right thing. Yeah, he drinks vodka martinis, doesn't he? And what do they have to be? Shaken, not still. I'm not quite sure about that. I think that may be so that you get that kind of cloudy mix. Anyway, what a brilliant drink that can be, especially with the splash of Angostura bits. There's nothing wrong with the vodka martini. Anyway, so he drinks those things, he drives that car, he has a Rolex and some expensive stuff on his wrist, or does he? Or does he? Because product placement actually has reached the realms of ridiculousness. So they stopped counting, I think, the number of different brands that are within the latest Bond film, No Time to Die. It's just off the scale. So, yeah, Aston Martin's there at the top, look, but also which other car manufacturers are there? Which other car manufacturers are there in that picture? They also, I don't know if you've seen the film, it's definitely worth watching, but it wouldn't be in the top 10. But think of all the car manufacturers there. Think about the film itself and what all those other brands are in there. Go on. You recognise the logos. Who else is there underneath Aston Martin? Land Rover's there in the bottom. Yeah, Land Rover's there. So there's those Defenders, isn't it? The baddies are driving the Defenders. Yeah. Wait to see. You go to Beauty Motor Museum. It's Beauty Motor Museum. There's the Defender, and all the splashes and the bullet holes are all painted on. They're all like decals on the side. You know, like the car's got a skin on it. And they've got, and all the bits that are smashed up are all painted so that you can see the bare metal underneath. And obviously they're driving them sort of smashed up. And my guess is that cost a huge amount of money, and almost certainly Jaguar Land Rover would have given them all these models because they come out, even though they're driven by baddies, they come out as being pretty rugged. But what other car comes out as being really rugged? So Jaguar's there, Land Rover's there, Jaguar Land Rover, they're both there. Aston Martin's there. Who else is there? What is he? He drives a Hilux, doesn't he? At one point, he jumps in a Hilux. All the Hilux tracks him down. He's in a Hilux, isn't he? Because it's the car that goes on and on and on and on. Even when 3 of its wheels are dropped off, it will still keep going. That's there, isn't it? Toyota's there. Also Chevrolet. Am I missing one still? Anyway, there's 4 or 5 different car manufacturers there. They're all the brands are listed. So suddenly you're loading up your film. So maybe you've got a bit greedy in terms of your product placement. Maybe it's really beginning to sort of dent the franchise. I don't know. I think it's probably horses for courses. But we know that it's still big business. So film term will call product placement, they call it brand placement. Other people call it entertainment marketing. I think brand placement is a good call, considering we're moving away, aren't we, from individual products and services towards the brand saying something with its kind of values underneath. So it's a favourable presentation of products, movies, films, TV programmes to gain from image transfer via classical conditioning. So there's Pavlov again ringing the bells. And when James Bond escapes in the Aston Martin from the baddies to get away in Casino Royale, it's going to give a positive image transfer. Anything associated with the star of the show himself, you know, the double agent who's super cool in everything that he does, then you can have a favourable presentation of that product. But we're into a funny old world now where actually just being in the film now gives you some credibility. Yeah? Yeah? Just being one of the advertisers that comes up when Tony Pollack searches for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, thank you, and comes up with an advert that might appeal to me. We're just into a numbers game now. We're just into a numbers game, yeah? Instead of having proper image transfer. But it's still there. That's why you do it. So it's a more recent thing. It's only becoming really popular amongst marketeers since the late 1980s. And But there was an association before in Hollywood between things like fashion, car, tobacco, drinks and industries since the 1920s. So it's been there, but it's only recently become really big. And it's the Bond films that kind of kicked it off. So sometimes consumers interested in the medium, they're unlikely to avoid exposure to the commercial brand, but they would be interested in seeing the brand in a film that they're interested in. So it has been criticized before as being unethical and subliminal, and is regarded by consumers as being kind of obvious and natural and giving the TV program a more realistic touch. At least that's what you're hoping. That's what you're hoping your customers would see. So you're beginning to give the product some kind of emotional charge with the atmosphere of the movie scene so that it fits into the movie scene. Hopefully you're picking up on some positive persuasive images with the character and using the product via classical conditioning. Hopefully you're creating awareness and interest for the product in terms of ADA, and you're showing the product as part of daily life. So your star is using the thing at first hand, and you're giving the brand, you're bringing the brand alive as the product with an artificial character, yeah? So it places some realism into your films. But it doesn't always work. So, what kind of car is this? It's actually a really nice car. What kind of car is this?
BMW.
Yeah, it's a BMW Z8. So the Z8 featured in the film when Charles Bronson was. He took a day off from making Mamma Mia and made a Bond film. And the BMW doesn't fit with that image at all, because everybody knows that James Bond drives an Aston Martin, and although that's a really cool car, it's not the same thing. Besides which, he's not, BMW is a German brand, and that car is kind of for the American market. And so suddenly you think, well, what's this British spy doing driving a car from America? That doesn't make any sense. What does he drink? He drinks vodka martinis, doesn't he? Which is shaken, not stirred. Does he drink Heineken? Not really. He doesn't come in from killing a few baddies, does he? And into his hotel room where Mrs. Bond's waiting for him, and with a couple of cold bottles of Heineken in the fridge. No, that doesn't happen. That's not him, is it? That's not him. And there's this really, really cringy moment in this film, which is Casino Royale on the train scene, where she's unbeknown to him, she's dressed him, she's pulled out all the dinner suit, and he's beautifully, immaculately dressed. With amazing bow tie, it's obviously beautifully taken. The shirt fits into a T, and she goes, "Oh, nice watch. What is it?" And it's an Omega. He goes, "Oh, it's an Omega." She goes, "Yeah, what else?" And everybody goes, and the product placement, and they're just taking Mickey. If you Google it, they just take Mickey because it just jars and crunches. It's crowbarred in. He's not going to put anything else except for Rolex on his watch. He's the best. He's not going to settle for some cheap knockoff. He wants the real deal on his wrist. And the way that they crowbar into the film, saying, "What have you got on your wrist?" And she goes, "Omega," and he goes, "Omega," and she goes, "Oh yeah, what else?" Well, I don't know, about Citizen or Hublot or Tag Heuer or all those kind of things else. Anyway, so it makes no sense at all. So product placement can massively backfire on you. And you've got to be really careful that you use it for real. And can't help but also mention with product placement also the idea of billboarding, where you can avoid people skipping through the ads by sponsoring the TV program. So that's one kind. Another kind is when you might have what you might call creative product placement, although sometimes it's called on set. These terms aren't very clear in this industry, I'm afraid. But creative product placement is when you might be just plonking the thing into your film or your TV program simply to give it exposure. So the example in the DePelsmacher book is the American Idol judges have Coca-Cola fridge and Coca-Cola drink cups in front of them with the logos turned around. And it makes you think about was it Pepsi and Ronaldo? Was it Ronaldo who came on to, after he had been part of a winning game, he came on and he took away the cups, and they said, "Why are you doing that?" He said, "Because I don't want my kids to drink it."
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and he got into a lot of trouble with the sponsor, but didn't. because actually they were in the news a lot. And if you're just playing a numbers game, no news is bad news, and any news is good. So creative product placement is when you're trying to put the product into the set just to give it some kind of recognition. A few problems with it. Products aren't always recognised because the audience is focused on, in this case, the American Idol singing rather than the product in front of them. And consumers only recognise and recall well-known brands. So all the brands that we had in No Time to Die have all got to be, recognisable. Even though I struggled with the Chevrolet and Toyota and Jaguar and Land Rover, and they're all in there, aren't they? And you've got to have a well-known brand. You can't have an up-and-coming unknown brand because it isn't going to work. And therefore, it isn't suitable for everything as well. And also, broadcasting rules are coming into play. So the UK is a little bit more stringent upon what you're allowed to do and what you can't do. And on public broadcasting, like the BBC, you can't have any product endorsement or advertising at all, and you have to be careful. Even on the radio, when people phone in and they say, "Oh, I use my iPhone," and they get called up a little bit. So we might be thinking about now on-set product placement, which is when the product is given some meaning on the set to give the scene a more realistic touch. So the product plays an active role now in the TV program. So this is what we really mean by brand or product placement. And it was introduced by James Bond movies back in 1964. And Goldfinger was the first film really to use that technique. And it helped to finance the making of the film. In fact, it did. It supported the making of the film. So this is when the product becomes a part of the character themselves. So creative on-set product placement. Here's an example of, this is Sex and the City, and they're associating themselves with Mercedes-Benz, or Mercedes-Benz associating itself with Sex and the City. And I've explained about all the different brands in No Time to Die, and the fact that there's quite a bit of clutter here. And one way of moving away from that clutter is actually to do this, which is when you have generic product placement. So here's a picture of Jessica Ennis, and she is an athlete. She's a runner, isn't she? And she is apparently endorsing all these brands, except she's not. She's on the set of Coronation Street, British soap, and she's in the Rover's Return, and she's pulling all these pints, but these aren't real brands. These are all pretend brands. And so what this does is this allows the makers of Coronation Street to franchise the product all around the world, but actually people still think that those are real brands. So they might go out and buy lots of gallons of, I don't know, Marston Pedigree or something like that because they think they've seen it on Coronation Street, but it isn't there. So generic product placement is a thing. The advantage is well-known brands could be falsely recognised and recalled without having invested anything. But the disadvantage, of course, is that it cannibalises effective, real, creative product placement. And there's an example from the Blues Brothers film in the Bells Like a Book. So limitations of product placement overall is that it can be seen as kind of manipulative, subliminal, something that's going into your psyche where you don't have any control over it. And effectiveness can only really be measured in terms of brand recognition. Which can only be done then in a kind of artificial lab experiment. So the whole way of kind of testing how well it works can only be done in a kind of artificial situation. So it's not very easy to see how effective it is. It's a long-term thing like sponsorship. Can only be about well-known brands. And of course, brand images can be conditioned in a negative way as well as a positive way. So not only with your association, say, with the action of a film, but also if your celebrity endorser goes bad or your actor goes bad, and then of course you're beginning to take the brand of that. Dislike for a character, actor, film can be transferred to the product. So like, dislike goes both ways. And too much product placement can be viewed as disruptive to the film experience or viewed as a sellout. So I don't know, people, I think they kind of expect it with the Bond franchise, but the internet is covered with all the mistakes that they make and all the product placements and all the stuff that kind of clutters up that film. So I'm a little bit over time. So any questions at all at home for that? You can use this in your own coursework. You could pick a local celebrity that you think is an appropriate fit with your brand, and you can use them. You could even have, couldn't you, a way that you might have your brand blocked on
television or a made-up film that you could have, and actually think about using your brand and projecting the image that it conveys with some kind of placement or celebrity endorsement.
Any questions at all before I stop recording? All right, brilliant, thank you. And you got the QR code?